Hi, my name is April Ziegler, and this is my third discussion board thread for History 530 at Liberty University, American Christian Heritage. I'd like to start off by saying that I believe in biblical principles and the study of history, and that God has established order, intelligence, and trust and truth in the universe and history, and that is a verse from Isaiah 42:5. Tonight I'm going to be talking about Reuben Archer Torrey, who is a significant Christian evangelist during a time of the end of the 20th century and during a time when there was the fundamentalist modernist controversy. Torrey was born in 1856 to a modern or a to at that time an upper middle class family. He went to Yale and as an undergraduate took many science courses in chemistry, geology, astronomy, and psychology. Under the influence of the president at Yale at that time, Noah Porter, he was influenced enough to take seminary classes as a graduate. So he returned to Yale in 1875 for seminary school. Torrey became hugely influenced by the fundamental Orthodox Christianity and the message of it, in so much so that he devoted the rest of his life to the service of bringing people to Christ. He published over 40 books in support of Orthodox Christianity. From 1902 to 1905, he traveled by ship around the world, converting, ministering to non-believers and converting them to Christianity. As someone who is educated in natural science and science, he had an appreciation and an understanding for evolution and natural and science, but he never believed that it substituted or explained the creativity and the creation by God. While he was in the United States, he partnered for a while with another Yale professor by the name of James Dwight Dana, who was a scientist, one of the world's leading scientists, and they went on many lectures and tours and delivered the message that Darwinism and natural science had very good explanations. It explained the survival of the fittest, in that natural selection did weed out the species that could not survive, and as others did. But what they did was they took that argument and said that natural selection and the survival of the fittest explains how some species exist and survive, but it does not explain the origins of it. And I thought that was a really good and powerful way of taking that argument of Darwinism and natural selection and making it into a Christian, more evidence towards Christian orthodoxy. In the early 1900s, Torrey broke away from the Congregational Church because they started to have more liberal views. He started off as a congregational minister, but then later, by the influences of Lyman Stewart and other Presbyterian based theologies, he moved closer to the Northern Presbyterian Church. In doing so there, he aligned with several other great ministers, and they put together a publication which was known as probably one of the most well-read, distributed publications during the start of the 20th century, that explained fundamental views, and it was called The Fundamentals. It was a 12-volume compilation of 64 writers, historians, theologians, and from that was articles after articles supporting the doctrine, Orthodox doctrine of Christianity, and from 1910 to 1915. The best part about this compilation of this book is that it was distributed. Over 200,000 copies of it was printed and distributed to theologians, seminary teachers, ministers all around the world for free. So Lyman Stewart, who was a Union Oil, had a great deal of money and contributed out of his own money $300,000, which was a lot of money in 1909. It's a lot of money today, but in 1909 it was a significant amount of money. And the goal of this book was to lay down, in 1910, these authors, they came together at the the Presbyterian Church's General Assembly, and went on record to affirm the fundamentals that the church believed in. Prior to that, I'm sorry, it's out of order, but prior to that, the Presbyterian Church had just purged all of their liberal people, personages from the church. So they were strictly conservative Orthodox message, and this book that was funded by Lyman Stewart laid down the fundamentals of what Orthodox Christianity was, and it was a 5-doctrine standard that were essential to Christian faith. 1 being the inerrancy of the Bible, 2, the virgin birth of Christ, 3, the doctrine of Christ's substitutionary atonement, 4, Christ's bodily resurrection on the 3rd day, and 5, the belief in Christ's miracles. And this was highly published and distributed, and it was all given for free. And that was just how important it was to get this message out and to base those roots of knowledge into the people, that this is what Christianity was all about. Oh my God, nice. And I encourage anybody, and the New York Times posted one of Dr. Torrey's sermons, and one of the intricate things that he did during his sermons is that he would always ask questions. It's so for like after he would preach something of genuineness, and he would say, does that sound made up? Does that sound like a falsity? Or does that sound like fiction? And his mindset was always, why would the people in the Bible die for something that they knew was not true. But I encourage people to read about Reuben Torrey because it is a very fascinating work. And the reason why I selected him is because during the time of all of this controversy over the Scopes trial and everything else, the back and forth between the fundamentalists and the modernists and who was right and who was wrong and who had more proof, during all of his 40 publications and books and even in the fundamentalists, Reuben Torrey never used rancor, name calling, or he never attacked scientists or science or even Darwinism. He never attacked. He didn't use rancor. He was always subtle. He reputed it, of course, but he was always a Christian about it. Thank you.